Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Tuesday, the 28th of July. I'm the host, Daniel, and today we're going to talk about a Russian has been arrested over spying for New Zealand. Iran says it controls the Strait of Hormuz and rejects talks with the US. And Chad has announced it's withdrawing from the ICC. So firstly, Russia's FSB have announced the arrest of a Karabostok resident accused of passing information to New Zealand's Security Intelligence Service, or SIS. The man, born in 1971, allegedly established contact with the agency and transmitted material Moscow says could harm national security. State media released footage of the detention, and the FSB purportedly flagged New Zealand's membership of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance as part of the media release. So what? Well, firstly, I have two theories on whether this is true. The first kind of theory is if it is true and this man was spying for New Zealand, then it's possible that he wanted to gain asylum in New Zealand after his, espionage activities were concluded. So he made a deal to pass the information to the SIS to ensure that, New Zealand was getting the benefit of what he was doing in the hopes that we would take him in at the end of it. And then there's the other side of the coin if it isn't true and this is just some poor businessman with ties to New Zealand who is getting just dragged into a pretty dubious game to be blamed for. That's the other kind of possibility in my eyes. But I think it's interesting to single out New Zealand. It's a pretty rare target for such cases. And I think it's likely meant to bring the Five Eyes bloc kind of into view within Moscow and show that, they work together and kind of frame it as like they're all against Moscow. Kind of an interesting move. Publicizing the arrest footage is likely aimed at deterring ordinary Russians from contacting foreign intelligence services, making it clear that there is punishments for these crimes and that, Russian intelligence is still good enough to catch spies. And then further espionage cases against smaller Western states is a realistic possibility as Russia hardens its counterintelligence posture during the conflict in Ukraine. And next, Tehran has declared it retains full control of the Strait of Hormuz and is not seeking to negotiate. This comes days after President Trump ordered a halt to US bombing. Iranian officials rejected talks conducted under pressure, casting the pause as a sign of Western weakness rather than an opening for diplomacy. The Strait, as we all know, carries a fifth of the world's oil, giving the Iranian threat to shipping direct leverage over global energy markets. So what? I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? The US is not really achieving what they want to achieve through air power. So Iran's refusal to negotiate is likely a bid to preserve their leverage while presenting the bombing halt as a domestic victory. It all kind of makes sense. Trump isn't really achieving what he wants to achieve through bombing, so he's gone back to negotiating, which Iran is just flatly refusing to participate in. A renewed escalation around the conflict remains a possibility if either side tests the fragile pause and also if negotiations don't go ahead in the medium term. Trump is going to, in my opinion, switch between bombing and attempts to negotiate to try and get what he wants, but so far it has seemed pretty ineffective. And sustained uncertainty over the Straits of Hormuz is likely going to risk a premium on global oil prices. Also, with the Houthis kicking off in another strait, that's also going to drive up prices and could cause significant issues. And lastly, Chad's government has announced it's withdrawing from the International Criminal Court, joining a widening list of African states who have challenged the tribunal. Officials framed the move as a defense of national sovereignty and a rejection of what they cast as selective Western justice. The decisions echo rhetoric across the Sahel, where military-led governments have steadily distanced themselves from Western institutions. So what? I think Chad's exit was likely part of a broader Shahalian pivot away from Western oversight and towards Russian and Chinese and also regional blocs for kind of support. Other Sahel states, including Chad, following Chad's lead, is a realistic possibility given they have shared grievances with the court and the West. And also the ICC's weakening reach in Africa will likely embolden other leaders to follow suit as they try and get away from accountability for abuses of power and military dictatorships. I think it's become pretty clear that the West has lost significant leverage in that part of the world. So, but anyway, that's been the Intel Brief. This is the second time I recorded this because I didn't share my screen the first time. Fuck my life. See you.